Good afternoon. I'm Dan McPherson with Leaders Must Lead, and this is the first episode of Finding My Path. This is an opportunity that I'm taking in more of an informal setting, more of a discussion opportunity to share a little bit about how I'm finding my path and how I have found myself to this spot so far. My hope in sharing this with everyone is that this will give you an opportunity to learn a little bit more about me, but also to engage with and understand how some of the decisions are made as we build a business or as we move forward and encounter struggles and challenges. I am certainly far from perfect, and I have learned that, I guess, a very series of very difficult ways. So I am focused on helping others to learn from my result or learn from my example and to have the opportunity to jump in and hopefully learn those lessons the easier way than I did. For me today, my goal is really to start with a question, and it's a question for you and then a question for me. And I think each of these episodes, which will typically be filmed on Tuesdays and Fridays and done live, will have a theme of a question that you can answer in your world. And I'd love to see your answers and your stories in the comments, but also that you can have the opportunity to hear me talk about over a period of time. When you are joining us, please feel free to jump in the comments, ask questions, let me know your thoughts about what we're covering today. So first, why do you do what you do? That's the question I have for you. Why do you do what you do? What is it that drives you? What pushes you? What causes you to take the steps that you do in life, or to run the business that you do, or to have the job that you do? What is it that helps you go forward? Why? What is your motivation? What, to use Simon Sinek's quote, what is your why? That is something that I have focused on for a long period of time. I grew up, and a lot of people know this, but a lot of people don't, but I grew up with absolutely no money when I was younger. I grew up not in always a great situation, but I grew up in a situation that was filled with challenges. Now, others had far more challenges than I have, but I grew up poor. I grew up with no money. I grew up in a lot of tough situations. I can remember being threatened by 4 or 5 kids at a time. I can remember walking down the street and having kids come up and grab my glasses and break them in half. I can remember not having any food in the house, and my mother chose to give me a little bit of food and not to eat any on her own. I know that those are struggles that many people face, and many people face far worse than that. But growing up in that situation, what I recognized is that everyone has a story and a dream. Over the last few years, it is almost countless times now that someone has walked up to me and said, Dan, you are so lucky. You are so fortunate. You hit the jackpot. And while there are certainly advantages that I have had or been around in my life that some others don't, I also believe that I'm largely a product of the fact that we are a result of our choices and not our environment. Our environment influences who we are, but it does not determine who we become. Our choices do. And when I grew up in those situations, I recognized, man, everyone's got a story. I've got a story. I can tell that story of having been young and not really having had anything. I can tell the story of my crazy injuries and how I've been fortunate to come out of life-threatening situations. I can tell the story of the opportunities that I've gained through all the other experiences I've had that have been super positive. But everyone has a story to tell. Everyone has things that they learn. And this series is my attempt to share that. It's also the basis for why I do what I do. I always wanted to hear people's stories. I always wanted the opportunity to hear what makes up people's lives, to hear what it is that drives people to get better or drives people to do what they do and to help their dreams come true. And I wanted to see their dreams come true. I wanted to be a part of that. Now, when I was younger, I had no idea how I could make that happen. This was long before I ever started a company. In fact, it was very early in my life, even in my teen years, man. I wanted to help people, but I didn't know how. So what did I do? I developed one of my early hobbies. I'm a role player. I play role-playing games, and I started creating worlds and helping people to maybe escape a little bit of what was going on in a day, but helping them find solutions and learn creative problem solving that way. And when I did, that was the gaming story. I always dreamed of how could it be a real story? How could I get to a spot where people could accomplish their dreams and do things in this world that would be better than what they might dream of in a fantasy world, that would allow them to accomplish the things that left them fulfilled. And over time, I found my way to that in real life. And now my mission, my dream, my passion, the focus of my company is to help people find their path. Thus, the name of this series, Finding Your Path, Finding My Path. And I'll tell you more a little bit about that in a few minutes. First, I want to talk a little about this series and help you understand what it will be. This is the first of many situations, hopefully, where we'll be talking together and where I will have an opportunity to gain from your comments and your feedback and to share a little bit about who I am and what's going on in my world. Let's talk about what this is. The focus of this series, of this Finding My Path series, is exactly that, to share with you how I'm finding my path, to take a super polished way, not the 2-minute tidbit that is this great tip for you, although I think some tips will come out of it, not the 30-second soundbite that an ad could be, not the pictures that are just on a website, but to just take the behind the scenes look, this opportunity of what's really going on before maybe in some cases it's even fully formulated, and to have the focus of sharing that behind the scenes picture of what's going on in my world. Now that means I'm going to share with you some of the things I'm struggling with. I'm going to share with you some of the things that have been hard for me, but I'm also going to share some of the wins. I'm going to share some of the why I'm doing things. Today, we'll talk a little bit about why it is that I work with one-on-one clients and why I have started this Mastermind program and process, why it is that we're doing series like this, to give you that why behind the what. I think in life, we want a couple of things. We connect with stories. We connect with the context around things. We also work better when we understand the why. And this is a principle in any business. If you work with a team, if you have your family and you have kids, that helping them understand the why behind the what is one of the very best things that you can do. And this is my opportunity to give you the why behind the what on a broader basis than might otherwise be possible. Secondly, is that there is a function to a series like this. For me, this function, in some senses, is the form of a live, literally, journal. And that's part of the format piece. I'm doing this live. It's a little terrifying for me, honestly, because while I like presenting, and I like presenting live, doing so with a camera without the opportunity to go redo it is very much jumping out there into something that is not super comfortable because of all the different things that I'm sharing. And I'm always thinking in my head, man, I wish I'd said that a different way, or I wish I had approached that differently. I wish I had not said that. All of these pieces that go away when it's live, and that's part of the intentional challenge of this series for me. And long term, if this goes well, I would love to bring in some guests and interview people about their why, to hear their story and share their story. And eventually, maybe this becomes a podcast. Who knows? Right now, I'm taking it very simply. I'm not out to change the world. I'm just here to share because I believe it can have a positive impact, a little bit of who I am and why I do what I do. So what this isn't super filtered. This isn't my other content. This isn't the Mastermind. This isn't a teaching and training session directly. Although, as I mentioned, I think a number of lessons as I share things I've learned will probably naturally come out of it. This isn't something that is designed to be reproduced in 25 different ways. This is more just a connection with you, that behind the scenes window into how it is that I've developed and run a successful company, how in just a few months we've built a six-figure company, and over the next couple of years, hopefully as you join us on this journey of how we will turn that into a million and multi-million-dollar company over the next 3 to 5 years. So that is really what it is and what it isn't. My expectations are really simple. Please listen. Please take a moment to share this with others that you think that it may have value, either now or in its recorded format. Please share your stories. Answer the question of the day. Today's question is, why do you do what you do? What is it that drives you to do the things that you do on a daily basis? So share your stories. Put those in the comments. I would love to read those. Send them to me separately. It would be a great experience to connect with you and learn more about you. I find that in my life, learning from others is the single best, most powerful thing that I can have done. And I find that it works very, very well to gain knowledge from those that are around us. So now let's take a few minutes, and I think I mentioned in the description, and I will reiterate it here, that from a format standpoint, these sessions are going to vary in length. Since this is my candid, informal conversation with you, these could be 5 or 10 minutes. They could be 25 or 30 minutes, but they are designed really to give an opportunity to share what's going on in my world right now, how we got to where we are, how I make decisions, what I'm struggling with, all of that. The length will vary. The days I will try to keep consistent so that you can predict it and have an opportunity to join us if this is your world. I'd also love your feedback of what you'd like to hear and what you'd like to see in these sessions. So, why do I do what I do? A little bit more extended. I grew up and I grew up in Michigan. I grew up on the west side of Michigan and in the Kalamazoo area primarily, although I spent a few years in northern Michigan as well. So growing up in the Midwest, I didn't know what I had. I didn't know what I didn't have. Looking back, I realized that there were some really tough situations when I was younger. And then as I got to be a teenager, I had some advantages that I look back now and I'm very thankful for as we moved out of being incredibly poor and gained some traction, and then worked through just a lot of tough personal situations. Not shockingly, I fit into the nerdy side of the class, and while there are things that went well, there were things that were a great challenge for me. High school was tough, but then I started working, and one of the greatest gifts that my father has given me is his work ethic, and he sent me out at 16 years old, said, go get a job. That was my first job, and from that moment on, I have always worked 40 hours and done school, or I've worked a lot more hours than that and done more. And as I went at first, it was very unintentional. But over time, it became much more intentional. As I worked first doing dishes and filling donuts and working in cafeterias and doing things like that for a number of years, I would look back and say I gained some things from that, but I had no idea what I was doing. I just knew that whatever I did, I wanted to do it well. And that was something that was set into me. The importance that whatever you do in life, however small, however big, if you say, yes, I'm going to do that, focus upon doing it well and doing it with quality. After I did that, then I started getting into an environment where I would sell. And I think that's where I understood some of my passion was for selling and for studying. To sell well, you have to understand people. And it's very helpful that you understand systems and how they work. Over time, I sold in home, I sold in retail, sold in a lot of environments, and I got very good at selling. And as I did, I recognized that my passion was much more in helping others. This is the first time where it hit me upside the head. I knew I'd wanted to help others before, but man, it just drove me and dug me to say, I need to help others. So I actually resigned a really good paying sales job so that I could manage and help and support others to grow their careers. My wife at that point we'd only been married a couple of years. She thought I was pretty nuts, but I did that. And having done that, I am grateful for the things that it has brought me. At first, I taught leaders, and then over time, leaders of leaders, and began multi-unit management. But it's also where I started recognizing and became fully aware that there are many departments within each company, and I started studying them. I started saying, how can I make a connection with each department in a company? Now, initially, that was strategic. That was in case I had the need for something that would happen from one of those departments. As it continued over time and the relationships developed, I realized that it was also because it gave me a conduit of information. It gave me an opportunity to study each of the things that I could. So I got to study HR, and I got to study accounting and finance. I had an opportunity to study more deeply into sales or into merchandising, all the different categories. And from then on, every company that I went to, I was able to just obsessively grab that information. I wouldn't put it into words until much later, but what I recognize now looking back is this is when I finally began to become aware that one of my greatest strengths is synthesis, the ability to grab things from a lot of places, pull them together, and then create something that's better than any of those individuals. That's a lot of what I do in working with my clients, is listen to where they're trying to go, hear a lot of what's going on in their world, grab pieces from each or grab things from all that I've studied and say, hey, here is a thing that we can do that will help you move forward. And this is how my passion for what I do really began to develop. And as it did, and I went further and further on, I started to have this drive that I wanted to do something on a bigger scale. That not that I was meant for something more, but that I was meant to do something more. That my goal in life or my place in life was to have a significant impact in some way. And I still didn't really know what that looked like. I explored a number of different things. I worked for a number of companies, had great positions, worked for some fantastic companies doing retail and managing hundreds of stores and hundreds of millions of dollars of business and thousands of people. And yet still, I felt like that I was trapped. I felt like I was trapped in someone else's world. I was trapped in a spot where I didn't have the level of control that I wanted, that when we encountered something that I felt was just viscerally wrong, that it was tough to not do it. I would stand up and say, we're not going to do this. This isn't right. But the fact that I even had to have that discussion was pretty challenging for me. And I began to understand that I wanted to do something on my own. And so I explored the opportunity to, what would it take to start my own company? And I didn't really know what it would look like at that point. And I took a shot at it, and early on it was called Five Diamond Consulting. It did not work out well. I helped a couple of people. It was great. I did it while I was working somewhere else, but it was more of a fanciful idea. Then a mentor that I trust quite a bit came to me and said, Dan, you absolutely need to have a clear plan and to understand what it is you need to learn to start that business to go that direction. So I started making lists. I made a list of, here are all the skills that I need to have. Here are all the things that I need to learn. Here are the plan that I need to have so that it can be more successful. And over the next couple of years, I started checking those off, not really still knowing where it was going to go. And then a fateful evening at our karate studio, my son and I, we do karate and we do jujitsu together. We love it. And the martial arts have focused our mind in a good way, have given us confidence and training in some positive ways. And it's been a great bonding experience with my son. It's also been a great way to develop friendships. We have a wonderful community at the two schools that we're involved with. One night at the karate school, one of the people that I really look up to suggested that I listen to a podcast. And I listened to that podcast. I went home. I was like, whatever. I listened to it. And as it turns out, that conversation was the one that led to directly over the period of the next year to me starting this company, Leaders Must Lead. It led me to the podcast, which gave me another opportunity to synthesize and to learn. After I learned, what I then found is, okay, now I have the knowledge. Now I need to make the plan. What do I do with that? And that is what led to the formation of this. So it's amazing what starts with one conversation. All of that is why I broadly do what I do. When I started the company, what I found then is that if you think things only broadly, that you end up in a little bit of challenge. If you think things only on a broad level and you try to help everyone, my initial thought was, I have all this great knowledge, I can help everybody. And while that may in some ways be true, if you try to help everybody, you're likely to end up helping nobody. And that was one of the challenges I encountered in starting a business. We're going to talk about that a little more on the next episode on Friday morning, which will be all about what lessons have I learned or have you learned since starting a business or since being in business. And I'd love to hear your stories there as well. The question of the day today is why do you do what you do? The question of the day for Friday and in preparation for Friday will be what lessons have you learned as you got into business? And for me, one of the earliest ones that I learned as I started this business was that if you try to help everybody, you're helping nobody. And you have to figure out who your audience is, who your mission is aimed at, so that you can have the biggest impact possible. As I moved forward, what I recognized then is that I had to find an audience. But before I could, I had to do something that was really tough. I started the company, and then I had to make a decision. I worked for a great company, had a great position, the most successful position I had had in my entire career. And I was offered another promotion, and I knew in my head that I had to either decide, yep, I'm going to do it. I'm going to take the leap, or I'm never going to do it, and I have to walk away. And when that was the case, I looked into the abyss, and it was pretty scary, and I jumped right off the cliff. I declined the promotion and jumped out to start my company, even though it has been really challenging. And I've faced a lot of obstacles, some of which I could have predicted, some of which I certainly couldn't have. I have not regretted it, because it is what I am made to do. It is allowing me to fulfill that passion that I've had since earlier in my life. So why did I leave a great job? Because that is who I am. That's how I'm built. I've spent a lot of my life facing tough decisions. And when I do, my rule of thumb is very simple. Do what is right. Do what is right. If you face something and it's a tough decision, do what's right, almost regardless of the consequences. And I would say almost, I'm sure there's some situation where not, but I faced some, even if it's inconvenient, choosing to do what's right. If you do what's right the right way all the time, the right things will happen. One of the great supervisors I worked for in the past, Jim Cronk, always used to say that, and I appreciate him, as that's one of the things that he connected with me that has absolutely stuck. So that led me to my audience, which is trying to figure out who my niche was. I looked at my first 7 one-on-one clients. And when I looked at those 7 one-on-one clients, what I found is that there was a theme. They were creatives. So what's a creative? A creative is an artist, a musician, a chef. They are anybody who lives in that world where they have that creative mind. Maybe they don't have the business skills. Maybe they don't have the engineering mindset or the specificity in that way. But they have that creative drive, that need to enter the world by making something. And this is something that I don't have. I'm a refiner, not a creator. But almost everyone I was working with were creators. So I dug in and I said, why is that? Once I knew that commonality, what else is going on there? Why is it that I'm drawn to those? Why is it that they're drawn to me? And as it turns out, I think a lot of the reason that they are drawn to me is because nobody is out there helping these people. The common things that we hear in the world today about creatives are what? That they need to get a real job, that it's a great hobby, that if you want to do music, fine, do that on your own time, but don't expect it to support you or help you. If you want to make money as an artist, well, that's great. That's a nice supplement. That's a good hobby. And guys, I will tell you that I found that to be total BS. Some of the lessons that I learned we'll get into next time involve how we view money and how we view these different professions and how they enter the world. One of the great examples that I use is this: what has an engineer built that an artist didn't first create? So there is an opportunity to take nearly any passion that you have and turn that into something real, to take that passion and turn it into a career. You don't have to walk away from something. You don't have to say, oh, it's only going to be a hobby. Now, your approach may vary. That's what I work with a lot of my clients on, is what your approach is going to be. I would say that my specialty in business is to understand that if you're here and you want to be here, that looking at that path in between, that's my strength. Figuring that path out and helping share what that looks like from a vision sense and from a practical sense of step by step, here's how you get there. Here's how you make that come true. And once I realized that there is a market for this, once I recognized that there is a great opportunity to help these people who are not getting it anywhere else, they're just getting shoved to the side of society, that's when I knew I had found my niche. I could either go try and work in what we call a take market, where I enter something really competitive, like say retail consulting, which I could make an impact. I can walk into a mom and pop retail store and in 5 hours teach them things that will increase their sales by 10%. But there are a ton of retail consultants. And so I do that when retailers come to me, but I don't go out and look for them, because that market is fighting for market share. It's fighting for a tiny fraction of what exists. It's a little bit easier to get into, but man, it's hard to do really well and differentiate yourself. On the other hand, there's this make market with creatives. What a make market is where you go into it and there's nobody doing it. So it might be harder to get into. It might be harder to create a situation where people connect that, hey, this is a need, I need that. But once you do, there's nobody else there, and there's so many people that are hungry and in need. And that's what I saw in the creative world. That is why I work with creatives. That is why, fundamentally, that is why I do what I do, because I'm so passionate to help these people. Since then, I've worked with musicians, I've worked with artists, I've worked with chefs, I've worked with chiropractors who fit on the creative side in many ways. I've worked with some non-creatives as well, certainly some mortgage brokers and insurance agents, among others. But the creatives are the drive. That's where there's just so much need. I'm connected to thousands of musicians, and I've had very few of them tell me that they don't have a need, that there is anyone else that they could connect with that gets this understanding and that can give them the knowledge they need. The funny thing is, all of these creative clients, they do things I will never be able to do because I'm a refiner, not a creator. They fill a need that I can't fill. They enter the world in an amazing way. But I'm able to dust off the tracks for them and help them see what switches to pull while they're putting the steam in the air, while they're putting the coal in the engine. They are able to move forward in that way because I'm able to layer in some skill sets, some business knowledge that they may not have had. And because my wife is a creative and I've lived with her for over 20 years, yes, you can feel bad for her. That's fine. I have lived with her and learned to speak that language and had so many friends that are in the creative world that I can connect in that way, in a way that makes a great deal of sense to them. So just a couple last things for today, and then we'll jump into more. But I'd love to just touch on not only why I do what I do there, but why I do more specifically what I do. I started with one-on-one clients because I wanted proof of concept. I also wanted the opportunity for client to show what a dramatic impact we can make by moving the fastest, the furthest. I've been fortunate to work with clients that have now added millions of dollars, and others that have added hundreds of thousands, and others that have gone from nothing to having a truly viable business and are building towards their career goals, and have done that in in more than a dozen different industries now. But that's why I started with one-on-one clients, is so that I could help them understand and achieve their dreams, and that would then give me the foundation and the validation to be able to balance forward and move into that next step. And I've had just tremendous opportunity to work with great people who enter the world in wonderful ways. So why this series and others that aren't really like it, but that are these live series? Why am I deciding to go Facebook Live for this, or for our Walk the Talk series where people get to see beautiful scenery while we do a Q&A? Why do I do those things? It's because I want to be accessible. I want to share what's really going on. I want to help people in every way possible. I want to provide content that connects. I want to share stories, and I want to learn people's stories. And one of the best ways to do it is to be out there providing things that have real value and real understanding. The last couple are, why am I doing some of this other stuff? This mastermind you may have seen posted about. The mastermind is something I'm very passionate about. It's Leaders Must Learn, and this is my opportunity. This is my opportunity to connect with people in a really inexpensive way, but to provide tremendous one-on-one content. One of the problems I ran into when I was talking with people about the one-on-one consulting is that even though I keep it super affordable compared to other consultants out there, so because I understand my audience, that there are those that no matter how much benefit they see in it, they are just not in a position to afford hundreds of dollars or thousands of dollars a month to be able to get the consulting that they might want, even if it would springboard them forward. So what I just have been asking the question of what is the best way to fix that. One of the things that Tim Ferriss, one of the people I follow via podcast, says is if you're feeling kind of overwhelmed, ask yourself, what would this look like if it were easy? And what I recognized is that I was making it too hard. So many people make it too hard. So what does it look like when it's easy? What it looks like when it's easy is I give people an accessible way that is super inexpensive to be able to get the same type of coaching that I provide my one-on-one clients, but do it in a group setting. It serves a benefit for me because it becomes one of my 4 streams of income, and it's something that can scale because it doesn't cost me a lot more time. It's something that works really well for a lot of people that are out there in the world because they can go and spend less than $100, and in fact less than $50, and in even the first few less than $30 a month to be able to get the training that they need and to be able to get live coaching sessions. We do 2 live coaching sessions a month. We also have a private Facebook group for networking because I recognize that connection matters and for asking questions. And we put in bonus training from some of our live sessions, such as training on leadership or sales or time management, that are already uploaded there. And I recognize that was the easy way to accomplish those pretty simple but important goals, to be accessible to everyone. And those who the consulting works for, that's great because they're going to move further forward faster. But this gives an opportunity for everyone to be able to move forward. If you are starting a company, you can find $30, $40, or $50 a month. You might not find hundreds of dollars a month, but you can find a little bit to invest, especially if you know it's going to return itself. Why speaking and podcasts and interviews? I do these things again to be accessible, to get out there, to connect on a lot of different levels. Podcasts are great because a different audience hears them. Speaking is great because a different audience hears them. Also, my passion is connecting with an audience. I love to be able to get up in front and see light bulbs come on. I don't love to get up in front just for the adulation. Don't get me wrong, applause is nice. I like appreciation, just like I like comments and likes on the series such as this when we're going live, and I like engagement. But it is also because I know that I can be there and connect with the room and have them start at one spot with an understanding, and then at the end go, oh my gosh, we just learned about time management and I can save 3 hours a day. I can save 20 hours a week. Or if we talk about sales, I can go close at 5% higher. I can make $30,000 this year because of what I gained. The opportunity to do that and to make that type of a difference in people's worlds, the opportunity to give the why behind the what and connect the principle to the practical, that is what drives me. That's what keeps me energized and driven and passionate about what I do. So today, there are lots of things that I could talk about. I really just wanted to give a foundation for everyone for why I do what I do. I'd love to hear over the next couple of days you commenting on this as you listen. For any of you who are listening, comment and say why you do what you do. What do you do and why do you do it? What drives you? What is your motivation? And I appreciate you for listening. I appreciate you for engaging. I hope that you found it valuable. I'd love for you to add to the comments maybe what you found of value in this time as well, what you might like to see in the future. And Friday morning, our session for episode number 2, our topic is going to be, I think, what'll become a little bit more common as we talk about what lessons I've learned since being in business. What were the things that I thought were true that I found maybe weren't as true, or what are the things that I uncovered that were unexpected but that have really connected with me? They're going to be practical lessons that I suspect will have some benefit for you. They've certainly hit me upside the head, sometimes like a 2x4, and that's the reality of it. I appreciate you guys. I am so thankful for the opportunity to connect with you in any way possible on any forum and to reach out and be able to make some small impact in your world. My goal is to help you move forward 1%. If we get better 1% every day, we will outpace the rest of the world by miles. Keep focused on that. Keep doing that. I appreciate you, and I'll talk to all of you later. In the meantime, keep finding your path.